gorgeous afternoon for baseball here in the Gateway City. And this afternoon, the Atlanta Braves look to sweep the Cardinals. Well over 40,000 here this afternoon, and they're picking up the bobblehead of David Freese, the hometown hero and World Series MVP. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everyone throughout Cardinal Nation. And those of you joining us here at the ballpark, pink bats will be used this afternoon by both teams. Many of the players will do that to raise money and awareness for breast cancer. Tradition that began 5 years ago in Major League Baseball. Special day for Chipper Jones as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is the Atlanta Braves' final regular season game at Busch Stadium in 2012. That means it's also the last regular season appearance in St. Louis for a player who's been one of baseball's best for the past 2 decades. As a rookie in 1995, third baseman Chipper Jones helped lead Atlanta to its first World Series title in 38 years. He has spent his entire 19-year career with the Braves, receiving the National League Most Valuable Player Award in 1999 and winning the National League batting title with a .364 average in 2008. Along the way, he's won 2 Silver Slugger Awards and is a 7-time All-Star. One of the greatest switch hitters in baseball history, Chipper is third all-time in home runs by a switch hitter, behind only Hall of Famers Mickey Mantle and Eddie Murray. In the history of the Braves franchise, he is second in nearly every career offensive category, behind another Hall of Famer, Hank Aaron. Earlier this year, Chipper announced that he is retiring at the end of the 2012 season. The Cardinals would like to recognize a great player and a worthy opponent on his remarkable career. Joining Chipper on the field are Cardinals general manager John Mozeliak, Cardinals pitcher Adam Wainwright, a Georgia native and former Atlanta minor leaguer, and Cardinals shortstop Rafael Furcal, Chipper's teammate in Atlanta from 2000 to 2005. The Cardinals are presenting Chipper with a framed photo taken during a game at Busch Stadium. The photo has been signed by Adam Wainwright, Rafael Furcal, John Mozeliak, Cardinals owner Bill DeWitt Jr., and former Cardinals manager Tony La Russa. For one of the greatest players in Atlanta history, the Cardinals also present a gift from baseball's perfect night, a Stan Musial jersey signed by Stan the Man himself.
Congratulations to Chipper Jones. We'll be back with more on Fox Sports Midwest. Chipper not in the lineup. Will we see him, though, today? We're about to find out.
soft tapper to third. Chipper got a hustle on the bare hand. Nice play, Chipper Jones.
Afternoon, he'll bat fifth. Off the DL, baseball is coming up. Time for our first pitch. Filing into Busch Stadium. It comes your way next. Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. By your Mid-America Chevy dealers, the #1 selling brand in St. Louis. Find us at stlchevy.com. By Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. And by Steak and Shake, just no equal. You could not draw it up any better. Gorgeous afternoon for baseball. Happy Mother's Day. And let's take a look at the Atlanta Braves lineup for Freddie Gonzalez. It'll be Bourne, Prado, and Freeman here in the first. Then Ugla, Hayward, Francisco, Ross, Pasternicki, and Tommy Henson, the pitcher, batting .091. Lance Lynn trying to go to 7-0 with a win today.
Two big, strong pitchers in this matchup here this afternoon. Lance Lynn at 6'5", 250, off to a terrific start. 1.40 earned run average, and he is showing a lot of composure on the mound in the early going.
Defense behind Lance Lynn today around the horn is brought to you by Dobbs. Holiday has the afternoon off, so Craig is in left. You know David Freese is going to be in there on his bobblehead afternoon. Behind the plate, it's Tony Cruz, and this is brought to you by Dobbs. Last time we saw Alan Craig in left field, this ballpark, he was catching the final out of last year's World Series. And he's in there today. You'll see many of the players either wearing pink wristbands or swinging the pink bat. Raise money and awareness for breast cancer. And that's what we see right now with Michael Bourne. Six for 12 with a home run in this series. That home run was late last night off of Romero. 1 ball, 1 strike, and the question becomes, Rick, when you look at Lance Lynn, why has he been so successful in that starting rotation?
Well, I think the mound presence is part of that, but he also has stuff to go along with it. He has a plus fastball. Breaking pitch is good. Changeup is developing. He hasn't walked a lot of hitters, and he's been very confident on the mound. I think it really comes back to that. His time in the bullpen probably helped him.
The first innings have been odd innings for Derek Lilliquist and Mike Matheny in this series so far, whether it be with pass balls or walks by Wainwright last night. Saw Derek Lilliquist on the pregame show. Still looking for answers when you think about Adam Wainwright, what direction he's going in right now. And as we talked about last night, Rick, a couple of steps forward, probably 1 step back last night.
Was not sharp. Lilliquist said in the pregame show that he wanted to go out and remind him after a couple of infield base hits, ground ball hits, that your stuff is good enough. Just get back on track. He felt like he came out of his game plan a bit.
Count runs full. Lance Lynn in his last start, only 5 innings. That was against Arizona. He was over 90 pitches, but the Cardinals wanted to be careful with him, and they had a big lead at the time and eventually held on to take the game. The 3-2.
Perfect afternoon here on this Mother's Day. 74 degrees. Nice crowd on hand. You mentioned the David Freese bobblehead. And another happy Mother's Day to all the Cardinal moms watching.
3-2 is a base hit into center. Good at bat there by Bourne. His 7th hit in this series. You think about Michael Bourne, you think about the potential of steals. And first inning runs, the 2 pass balls on Friday by Molina. He's only done that 1 other time. That was in 2005. And then last night, Adam Wainwright, the RBI walks that he allowed with the bases loaded, he would walk 5 in the game to match his career high. Martin Prado batting .274, 2 home runs, and he has driven in 16 this year. You got Tony Cruz behind the plate and a very good base stealer at first base in Michael Bourne. Since 2008, he leads all of Major League Baseball, 226 steals. You may see both teams be aggressive today. Tommy Hanson, the starter for the Atlanta Braves, allows a ton of stolen bases. 2 years ago, he allowed the most in baseball.
Both backup catchers getting a start this afternoon, as often happens a day game after a night game. And a long road trip for the Atlanta Braves. They swept Colorado, lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs, and are looking for a sweep in this series.
1 ball, 1 strike on the pitch out. Cardinals will welcome Chicago to St. Louis tomorrow. That'll be Westbrook and Dempster. The start time is at 6:05. 6:05, early start tomorrow. One ball and 2 strikes. A pitch out, and interesting to see that Lynn would go with a breaking ball there, Rick, because many times you'll see a team run after that pitch out if they're not caught.
And it was pretty sharp breaking ball, caught the inside corner. Prado was bailing. He's going to run sooner or later, that's for sure.
Not running here. The 1-2 is taken for a ball. 2-2. You saw Cruz kind of stab at it, and the pitch looked to be pretty good. May have been a called 3rd strike. Sometimes that'll fool the umpire, the way that the catcher receives it. Stays 2-2. Alan Craig way off the line, out in left. They shade Prado to the opposite way. A 2-2. Bourne is running, and hit by the pitch is Prado.
Prado appears to be in some pain. That was a very slow breaking ball that just got away. It must have just hit him in the wrong spot. Really a slow pitch and kind of a slow reaction from Prado. He saw the spin and thought it was going to break, and it didn't. And it must have just caught him in the wrong spot.
And Rick, you mentioned that on the previous breaking ball he was bailing out. You wonder if he was just trying to hang in as long as he could on this one.
Very well could be. Very small, delicate bones in the back of the hand and the wrist. Actually ducked, and it hits him off the left hand as it was on the bat, and may have just pinched it. And I say it wasn't thrown very hard. We're talking about by comparison. 78 miles an hour, still pretty fast to be hit by a baseball from 60 feet.
So trouble again in the first inning for the St. Louis Cardinals against the Braves this weekend. And it brings in Freddie Freeman. Twice already has been named the National League Player of the Week. 6 home runs, 27 driven in to lead their club. Runners at first and second. Outfield is deep. And at times, Rick, we've seen that Lynn struggles with that breaking pitch and then just relies on the 2-seamer and just pounding that sinker.
Well, he's fortunate to have 2 kinds of fastball. He has the sinker that works. He also can throw the riding fastball. So those are like 2 different pitches.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Slider definitely kind of his most average pitch, if you'd say.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. Out of play.
So Freeman has been Player of the Week twice, and he's batting .277. That tells me he's either hot or he's not.
And there's what you're talking about, too, for his last 16 the past 5 games. Runners at first and second, nobody down. Freeman has the wristbands that are pink, the pink spikes as well. Two.
A lot of off-speed pitches for Lynn in situations where you normally see his fastball. Threw a 1-2 slider that just missed, then a changeup. Now he's back to a 3-2 count, and I'd like to see him establish his fastball a little bit more early on.
And you mentioned that with Derek Lilliquist talking about it on the pregame show with Wainwright, being a little bit more aggressive. And on the hands, and he pulls it foul. You'd love to see the Cardinals play well this weekend and again tomorrow and Tuesday with the kind of crowds that we're seeing right now with well over 40,000. But put out that entertaining product, you win games, people come back.
Cardinals still 7 games over 500. It's been a good start for them despite their struggles the last couple of games.
Here's a 3-2 off-speed pitch again. Braves looking for a sweep. Last series sweep of the Redbirds was in 2009. They took all 3 here at Busch Stadium. They've already had a sweep on their road trip last weekend at Coors Field. Big strikeout, first of the afternoon. What a series it's been for the middle of this lineup. How about Dan Uggla? Put this one off the facing of the third deck. 4 for 9, couple of doubles, home run, and a pair of RBIs. He does not get cheated. He'll take a rip. And he has a chance to do some damage here in the first inning. 5 home runs this year. He's driven in 21 and batting .282. And Rick, compare that to last year. He was hitting under 180 on the 4th of July. 173 at that time last year. And then he gets a 33-game hitting streak, and he still hits 36 home runs. Ball 1 to Uggla. No Chipper Jones in the starting lineup. And you would have to figure that at some point we would see him come into this game as a pinch hitter, maybe stay in, who knows.
Nice round of applause for him when he was honored before the game. Adam Wainwright, Rafael Furcal out with him, presenting him with a Stan Musial autographed jersey. That was a nice moment.
1 ball, 1 strike. Chipper, many stops in his career. When he's on the road, he's the guy that always heard the most boos too. Best player, clutch player. One and two. There's that good-looking fastball from Lance Lynn.
Well, he's starting to establish the fastball again with Uggla here, and yeah, this is a good fastball hitting team. But when you throw this hard, you got to use it. Nice location.
Long look by Lynn. Runner goes from second. Swing and a miss. Throw to third. Yes, it's a double play. It's a double play. Cruz gunning down Bourne, trying to steal third. Tony Cruz, the backup, right on the bag. Freeze applies the tag. 1 against today's starter Hansen. It's for Kyle, Jay, and Beltran. Then Craig, Berkman, and Freeze. Descalso, Cruz, Lynn. Starting 9 for St. Louis against Tommy Hansen, the opening day starter this year for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, 4 years in the big leagues under his belt, and he was really a phenom when he came up. 2009, he was 3rd in Rookie of the Year balloting. In fact, he got a lot of first place votes. He was outstanding at 11-4, and he's never really repeated those numbers. He's had some shoulder tendonitis, missed a lot of games last year, but he's a horse too. He's a big horse, 6'6", 220. And he had a very good outing his last outing against the Cubs.
Velocity has dropped for Tommy Hansen, byproduct of a little tear in his shoulder at the end of last year. He has changed the way that he throws his delivery to the plate. Here's a 1-0 to Rafael Furcal. Say he's using more of his lower half to try to take some of the pressure off his shoulder and his back. He also had some back issues last year. They say that he is a prototypical short armor, and maybe explain the difference between being a short arm guy and also being a guy that extends it out.
Well, you gotta be one to know one, and I certainly was one. And what he does is he doesn't get a lot of extension on the backside in a big arm arc. He really just almost brings his hand straight up, and he pauses a bit at the top of his delivery. And like Jake Westbrook, does not have a long arm arc. It's just almost like he's throwing a dart as opposed to throwing a long throw from the outfield. If you picture an outfielder's arm, it's almost the opposite of that.
Here's a 2-2 to Rafael Furcal. Slaps it down the left field line and foul.
And usually short armors are not hard throwers. Jake Westbrook would be an example of that, but often the short armors are guys that get more movement and they do things with finger pressure, and maybe that's the pitcher he's becoming because of his shoulder problems you mentioned.
Also throwing his 2-seamer a little bit more than the 4-seamer, so you'll have that drop of 2 or 3 miles per hour on the velocity. And I mentioned how the Cardinals could be very aggressive because of a Rafael Furcal at the top of this lineup. Bourne was thrown out. You see the highest average of leadoff hitters so far this year, but the reason you bring it up, Tommy Hansen allowed 33 stolen bases in 2010. He allowed 30 last year in just 22 starts. And so you would have to figure that as much as Mike Matheny wants to run this year, this would be the perfect guy to do it against. A 3-2 pitch to Furcal. Leadoff walk, and we'll get a good indication right here. Prado, Bourne, and Hayward in the outfield. This is presented by Dobbs. Francisco, Pasternicki, Ugla, and Freeman along the infield. And David Ross is behind the plate. So you see Francisco at third. No chipper. And it brings in John Jay.
He's played very few innings defensively, Francisco, and has 3 errors already. So we'll watch for the defensive drop-off perhaps.
See that Mike Matheny, first innings, a lot of times is sacrificing with John Jay.
He probably knew about those 3 errors for Francisco, but John Jay has shown that he can bunt very effectively, pink bat and all.
Francisco in on the grass at third base. They'll hold it first.
As successful as Furcal has been, 6 for 7, and as poor as Hansen has been at holding runners, you just almost prefer a straight steal than to give up the out with a bunt.
Good point. And Hansen is a guy that when he used to have his old delivery, it was a hesitation and a hitch at the top that even carried over when he was working from the stretch. He's still got it a little bit.
Sure does.
Not as pronounced as the last few years. He has improved that.
Well, there are people in the Cardinal dugout right now. Chris Maloney's probably doing it, timing his delivery to the plate, and they're going to know exactly what that number is from when he begins his motion to when the ball gets there. And they already kind of have a number for the catcher, Ross, what his time is from catching the ball to getting the ball to second base. You add those two numbers, and if it's higher than the magical number, you think you can steal 100% of the time, you just go.
1 ball, 1 strike on Jay. There he goes. Good jump. And a throw to second. It's into center field for Kyle on his way to third.
Good jump for Furcal. Pitch up in the strike zone. Should have been a good pitch to throw. Even on the money, he doesn't have it. A Plaza Tire Service Foxmo look at Furcal sliding in head first and bouncing up. Cardinals now with a chance to get on the board early.
Three and 1 on John Jay. Carlos Beltran is on deck. I'm with you. I think when you look at the success that Furcal could have in this game if he gets on, why give up the out? Now Jay has a chance to drive him in. He'll walk. Back-to-back walks to start the game.
At least in the early going, you have two big horses on the mound, 6'5", 6'6", 220, 240, and they're both pitching backwards. They're pitching as if they're the defenders as opposed to the offensive-minded guy. I'm going to go right at you and here, hit this. A lot of off-speed pitches, a lot of pitches nibbling on the corners, and both these guys have good enough stuff that they can go right at hitters.
Here's Carlos Beltran. Runners at first and third, nobody out. There goes the runner from first, and a throw to second. No one is there. It's a stolen base. Stolen base number 4 for John Jay.
Well, this can't happen what Pasternicky does. He doesn't cover the base. He just assumes there's not going to be a throw, and he's very late in covering. That could have been a problem. Catcher has to throw to the base, has to assume the defender's there.
Beltran is 4 for 8 in the series. Pair of home runs on Friday night. 0 for 3 last night. 33rd career multi-home run game on Friday night. In the last 10 games, he has been on fire. Outfield is deep. Here's the 1-1 pitch. The Cardinals lead in run differential in the National League. How about this? Plus 68. Next closest team is plus 31.
With that differential, and as good as the Cardinal numbers have been offensively and pitching and defense, you almost think they should be more than 7 games over 500.
Exactly. 20 and 13. The Braves 21 and 13. The 2-2. We see this a lot with Carlos Beltran, where he goes just game after game, at bat after at bat, deep into counts. Great batting eye.
Knows the strike zone. On base percentage has always been high.
The chance to do some damage. This pitch right here. 3-2. Runners at second and third, and nobody down in the Cardinals half of the first. Strikes out. Called third strike, and it brings in the left fielder today, Alan Craig.
Went backdoor with a little slider, 3-2, respecting Beltran, and might have been outside, too close to take.
Allen with a pair of hits in this series, including a home run on Friday night. He's homered 4 times in 6 games. He played all over the place last year. He was at first. He played second. He played third, left, center field, and right field for the world champs.
Nice to have Berkman back in the lineup. Alan Craig has been running well. We've watched him first to third, moving around first base. Think he's ready for the outfield. Probably his better position.
Ricky, you think about the success that he had in postseason play, and it was just 2 years ago he was up and down with the club. Home run for the game-winning RBI in Game 7 of the World Series. He had the game-winning RBIs in Games 1 and 3. 4 home runs in postseason and 3 in the Fall Classic.
5 hits in the World Series. He only hit .260 in the World Series, but every hit was extremely meaningful.
In the hole here, 1 ball and 2 strikes. But
Pinch
something
hits,
like that, how
runs.
it carries over to being an everyday player now. And you know that he belongs here, and he knows it.
Yeah, Lance Lynn the same way. David Freese. All confident players.
The shade Craig to the opposite field. Big gap in left center. The 1-2. And that's a called third strike.
Another breaking ball. Really the same pitch, same location. Both of them just off the plate. Craig, a mild complaint to Brian Knight, our home plate umpire.
Good to see that Berkman is back. Missed 21 games. The strained left calf. He did that against Cincinnati. A cold night at the Great American Ballpark. And with missing nearly a month, you worry about the timing of a guy coming off an injury.
We worried about that with Schumacher and John Jay and Alan Craig, and they all came back hot. We'll see if Berkman does the same thing.
0-1 pitch to Lance Berkman, the switch hitter. Schumacher virtually had no time of seeing live pitching. He was back into action. Craig, a little different story as he was rehabbing in the minor leagues, and Berkman right off the DL and into the starting lineup.
I'm not even sure Schumacher was ready to play, period.
I think he would agree with that assessment. Hasn't seemed to have bothered him one bit, though.
Exactly.
Played very well.
He's a gamer.
One ball, one strike.
It's early. It's only the first inning. Don't want to bury both of our starting pitchers today, but both pitchers pitching so far like they're facing the 27 Yankees. You just get this defensive look for both of them, as if they're afraid to go right at hitters. A lot of pitches, picking, a lot of off-speed pitches.
Two and two. You can see where Hansen has success in his career, and he's done it so far, changing speeds. That was a nasty pitch. And it's a strikeout. Hansen comes back to strike out the side. 2 walks and then 3 consecutive Ks. very good this year with 19 wins, and that ranks first, not just in the National League, but in all of Major League Baseball.
And keeping the ball in the ballpark, Dan, allowing very few home runs. The ground ball to fly ball ratio is important. And the defense really goes hand in hand. The defense has been good, but the pitching has made the defense good, and vice versa.
Third best ERA right now. Owned by Lance Lynn, 1.40. Lynn with 26 pitches in that first inning. Hansen 28. And we are scoreless. There's Jason Hayward, who battled injuries last year, his sophomore campaign. Homered on Friday night, which proved to be the game winner, his 5th of the year. A foul ball.
It was interesting. We caught Mike Matheny talking to Tony Cruz as he came out of that first inning, and Lance Lynn threw all those pitches, and Mike Matheny having a one-on-one conversation with his catcher, and not only speculate what they were talking about, but I would assume there's some talk about more strikes, more fastballs, get ahead. Lynn labored, but bottom line is, same with Hansen, zeros on the board.
As Mike said, the philosophy of his pitching staff is pretty simple. Throw strikes, pitch to contact. Nothing has changed from Dave Duncan to Derek Lilliquist. But pitch ahead in the count if you can. We've talked about how Mike and Tony, when we visited with him on Friday night, mentioned how Mike would, live and die with his pitching staff, so to speak, and take it home with him when guys did not pitch well. I wonder how much he does that now as the manager, where it is completely on him in a lot of ways.
So many things to think about when you're the manager. He had to have a conversation with Shane Robinson today and tell him, yeah, I know you're hitting 311. You've been a valuable guy that's had some good at-bats, some big moments for us, but we need you to get more at-bats, and we're sending you down. That can't be easy. And he doesn't have a lot of experience telling players that.
2-2 pitch. Full count. And that's ball 4 to Hayward. Keep an eye on him. He has 9 steals this year, which matches the entire total that he had a year ago. First walk by Lance Lynn.
There's the grip of the 3-2 pitch. The speed of the arm going through the throwing area when Lance Lynn gets that 3-2 pitch, just not exactly where he wanted it.
Lynn, a couple of times when he has finished that delivery, Rick, has not looked comfortable whatsoever in how he's finished. He's kind of looked back at the mound, maybe where he's planting that front leg. Nowhere close. 2 balls and no strikes. And it's falling off, too.
Well, the last pitch for sure, his body was way out in front of his arm. And what happens, we talked about that some yesterday with one of the relievers, if your body gets out too fast, and sometimes you do that to hold the runner on, your arm does not catch up to where it needs to be in your proper mechanics. Stay back, much better.
Losing the bat. It's in the crowd.
Happy Mother's Day. I hope that gentleman gives that back to a mom. Would only be fitting.
Juan Francisco last year spent the majority of the season at Louisville, AAA affiliate of the Reds. He also hit a home run that was measured over 500 feet when he was called up to the Reds. You hear that round of applause. It was for a fan that was hit by the bat and now walking with assistance. Let's hope everybody's going to be all right. 2-1 the count on Francisco. Lynn thought about going to second. Gets the shore out. 1 away. Another former Red, David Ross, will dig in for the first time. Think about being a backup catcher. You can find a guy that you're in sync with, and he's that important, the one on the mound. You can make a career out of being his personal catcher. Ask Henry Blanco, who's still catching. He's with Arizona now, but for so many years he was Greg Maddox's personal catcher.
You're going to do the personal catcher thing. Very important to be the personal catcher of a guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer. Because if you're the personal catcher of a guy that's going to get sent to AAA, you don't want that.
No, it's not a good thing.
No, because you'll go with it.
Yes. Strike one to Ross. 7 starts this year coming into play. .318 average. At second base, it's Hayward with good speed. No score here in the top of the second. Foul tip. 0-2 the count.
We've seen Lynn miss quite a bit on the arm side, and to me that always is an indication of your body being out ahead of your arm, because it's dragging, it's slower, you can't get your arm out in front. The hardest pitch to throw is that pitch, if your mechanics are off, the pitch down and away to a right-hander. One of the remedies of that is when you go out to throw your warm-ups for the next inning, have the catcher set up off the plate away from a right-hander and throw about 5 pitches in a row over there to make sure you get your arm out front.
So you're overcompensating, so to speak.
Exactly. Just getting that feel back. And it might slow your body up a bit.
0-2 the count on Ross. John Jay in center. Fairly shallow. And it doesn't matter. That's a strikeout. Strikeout number 3 for Lance Lynn. Six Flags double play combo. Get a ticket to Six Flags and a Cardinals ticket for one great price. Cardinals.com/Six Flags to find out more. Tyler Pasternicki. Hit safely in 14 of his last 19 starts. There's a good breaking ball there from Lynn.
Much better. That last fastball was good too. To David Ross, it's a game of continuous adjustments.
Pasternicki only 22. Freeman, a young player. Runner at second, a very young player in Hayward. That's backhanded. Nice play. Descalso. Scoreless midway through 2.
And we've got some old video of the delivery of Tommy Hanson a couple of years ago and see if he's changed much. Really not a lot of difference. Maybe a little bit more extension in the back on the one on the right, which is the past. Follow through the same. So really consistent delivery still. He's always been a short armor to a degree. And it's been successful for him. We mentioned he was outstanding in 2009, 11-4 that year. And he was Houdini in the Cardinal first.
Happy Mother's Day to Lynn Freeze, David's mom. What a thrill this must be for David and his family, the ride that they're on. After last year's postseason, the fact that he's back in town, Lafayette High School product. Played at Merrimack Community College. 1-1 pitch. It's his bobblehead today, and there's a packed house here at Busch Stadium to make sure that they get that bobblehead.
20 years ago, if you'd have told Lynn that, hey, I know you're going to celebrate Mother's Day in 20 years by going to watch your son work. How's that sound?
Yeah.
She said, I'm not sure I want to do that.
Exactly.
But that's what she's doing it, and I know she's enjoying it.
She had a great story. She told me right before the season began that they were in the family section for Game 6. And I said, well, what did you think of the home run? She said, I never saw it. And I said, why is that? She said, I couldn't bear to watch. I was so nervous. I heard the crowd reaction, and she's seen it since on tape and the replays. But she said everybody was in hysterics, including her.
You know, we all feel those moments as fans the way we feel them. But the way a mom feels it with her son, with the pressure, there's an empathy that I think no man understands fully.
Full count here on Freeze. And David's mom is a volunteer at many charities concerning children here in town. And David, unsolicited, does not want a lot of people to show up or even realize that he's doing a lot of this, but he shows up all the time and signs autographs, brings a jersey, takes pictures, anything to lift some spirits. He is what you hope for in a professional athlete. Been through a lot. Here's Descalso, who made a very nice play on the backhand. Took a hit and a run away. You don't worry about the defense, and last night we saw Descalso with a triple into left center, and hopefully that gets him going.
He had a nice at-bat. He was first ball hitting last night, which I think is sometimes a good way to get out of a slump. Just swing the bat. If you get deeper in the count, all of a sudden you get a little defensive. And Hanson's throwing a lot of strikes now all of a sudden, and 4 strikeouts in a row.
Walked the first 2. The Cardinals had a pair of steals as well. Had runners at second and third, nobody out, couldn't bring them in. And they've had opportunity after opportunity in this series, especially in Game 1. Last night they were very quiet, but Game 1 they had the bases loaded, only 1 out, hit into a double play. There's Livan Hernandez. Yes, that Livan Hernandez came out of the bullpen for the Braves. One and 2 the count on Descalso. On the outside corner, that's a strikeout. And it's 5 in a row.
Been a wide strike zone. It's got wider.
Cruz made a start Wednesday in Arizona, the night after Molina was hit by a pitch that he was crossed up on behind the plate. Played 5 positions last year for the Redbirds. Catcher, first base, third, his natural position. He was drafted as a third baseman. Saw him in the outfield as well. Just 3 hits this year. Oh, 2. 1-2 strikes. Beautiful afternoon here in St. Louis. Happy Mother's Day. 1-2 the count on Cruz, and Hansen trying to strike out his 6th in a row. Into shallow center, Michael Bourne makes the catch. We'll head to the third and tell you all about MLB.com and the app you can get right after this.
Coverage for the Cardinals with MLB.com at Bat 12 for your iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry, and Windows Mobile. Get live audio, pitch tracking, video highlights, and more. All you need to do is text @BAT to 31826 or visit Cardinals.com for details. Beautiful Mother's Day afternoon in St. Louis. No score. Lance Lynn out for his 3rd inning of work.
Nearly 30 pitches in that first inning for both Hansen and Lynn. It looks like Tommy Hansen has certainly settled in. He struck out 5, has not allowed a base hit, and for Lance Lynn, he's hit a man, he's walked 1, and struck out 1. Tough spring for Hansen trying to return from injury. We've talked about his mechanics, but also was involved in a car accident. Got a concussion, and so his spring training got started a little bit later. Missed some time with that. And he is a big, big key if the Braves are going to have any success this year. Back to the top of the lineup, and Michael Bourne. You know, Rick, you look at Houston and what they were trying to do and clean house, so to speak, for new ownership and clean slate, but there were a couple of players that you think about. Hunter Pence, Michael Bourne being another one that undoubtedly, you know, could play and help them, and they gave them up. Pence now with the Phillies, and Bourne, who is a Houston native, with the Atlanta Braves. Sometimes you just question those kind of moves, and maybe you're clearing salary to make it more attractive during the sale, but still, these are young players that they gave up on. 1-1 strike. And this is a true leadoff man. And a lot of teams are looking for this kind of player.
Well, when you throw the economics into it and the sale of a team, you've got a lot more variables than just what's the best team on the field that particular year. But Michael Bourne, clearly a lot of upside to him.
Yes.
His defense to go along with his speed. And we mentioned earlier, one of the top 3 leadoff hitters in baseball right now in terms of average. And he's been spoiling some good pitches from Lynn today, too. Been pesky.
You can't teach speed, can you? And he's got that. You think about that speed and how it plays into a game too, and really a lost art, the game of baseball. You saw it firsthand with Coleman and McGee and those fun teams of Whitey Herzog in the 80s, and how it can make such a difference to a team, and they take on a different identity. 2 balls, 2 strikes. On the inside corner, a strikeout. 5 strikeouts for Lance Lynn. His second here in the 3rd. That fastball becoming a factor.
Well, it's been a wide plate today, and that's the biggest objection that we've seen so far. That one looked like it may have caught the inside corner. There's the delivery, up and in. Bourne, the biggest protest so far, but both clubs not real happy with the wide strike zone.
Martin Prado hit by a pitch, first time up, and that's a strike. Lance Lynn, Tony La Russa would tell you he didn't know much about him prior to last season. And a lot of people look at the velocity. Big guy, as you mentioned, Rick. And at times in his minor league career, the tag of not throwing all that hard, but we see that he can bring it. In one game towards the end of the season a couple of years ago, struck out 16 when he just let it loose. And he was throwing upper 90s out of the bullpen last year.
He had taken the teaching of pitching to contact and pitching kind of within yourself to an extreme, to where he wasn't letting the ball loose. And he found that he had 3 or 4 more miles per hour in that when he let it go, and certainly helped him out of the bullpen, and it's helping him this year. He's just off to such a terrific start. Really, the Cardinals are in so many ways, and probably still not talking enough about their defense, Dan, how good that's been in support of their starting pitching.
Now it's Freddie Freeman. He's only 22, 6'5", 230-pounder. First baseman has 30 hits this year. 13 of those have gone for extra bases. One ball, one strike. Last year, just the 8th rookie in Braves history to have 20 home runs. First to do so since Chipper Jones back in 1995. He had 23. That scoots away from Cruz. A high delivery. And Prado advances to second. He's in scoring position.
Pitch up in the zone. Cruz expecting an off-speed pitch, and he got the fastball, and he's out talking to Lynn now on his way back to home plate, and I think maybe he was crossed up there. The location certainly was nowhere near where Cruz had set up. Opportunity for Atlanta.
Watching the reaction of Lance Lynn, I'm not sure if he was upset at himself or Cruz. 3-1. Lance, a big guy, should be fresh and ready to go with only 91 pitches in his last start. The 5 innings, only allowed 3 hits. There's the curveball again, and nowhere near the strike zone, and Cruz trying to encourage his starter. 2 on with 2 outs, and it brings in Ugla. 61 pitches, and not a very good ratio there. Second walk by Lynn. Ugla struck out back in the first to end the inning. He had 2 runners on in the previous at bat at first and second. That's what he has here. Here's a 1-0. Ugla has seen a lot of that. Breaking balls, off-speed pitches.
Clearly the book on him is a good fastball hitter.
Home run on Friday night. That was off Sepchinski.
Begs the question of whether you pitch to your strength or away from their strength.
One and 2 the count with 2 down and 2 on. Ugla's had a very good road trip. Couple of home runs, hit nearly 400. 32-year-old Dan Ugla. Just missed. 2 and 2. At times today, that's been a strike. The 2-2. Popped up. Cruz. Foul territory. Does he have a play near the screen? Just out of his reach. Cruz and Lynn want to get on the same page. A very important pitch with a guy like Ugla.
They missed location again right there. So Tony Cruz out talking to his pitcher, just trying to nurse him through this inning. A lot of pitches for both pitchers in the early going.
Outfield is deep for Dan Ugla. And Lynn will step off. Working very slowly with runners on today. And carefully here with Ugla.
It's a real challenge for Lance Lynn today in terms of the mound presence that we were talking about. We see a few kind of breaks in that as he's kind of disgusted with himself and just trying to kind of shake it off and move on. Crowd trying to help him.
Yep, coming alive. A big pitch. walked him. Would look to be a harmless inning for Lance Lynn. He struck out the first two. He then allowed a base hit to Martin Prado. He walks Freeman. Now Ugla. And Jason Hayward digs in. So the bases are loaded. Hayward walked his first time up. Lynn has walked 3. He struck out 5. He's allowed just 2 base hits, one to Bourne to start the game, the other to Prado just moments ago. First pitch is popped up and out of play.
Key confrontations of a game, we talk about it a lot, Dan, don't always take place in the 8th and 9th inning. This could be key to the game right here. What does Lance Lynn do in this situation with Jason Hayward, who has a chance and the power to do a lot of damage? Lance Lynn trying to get his composure and his control.
The 0-1 pitch. This is low and away. 1-1. Two and two. May have gotten away with that pitch there. What do you think?
Prime hitting location.
Sure, today very special afternoon for the Lynn household. Brand new baby girl born in March.
Lance turned 25 yesterday.
Yes. The 2-2. Cruz is able to stop it. Lynn pounding into the glove. Count runs full with 2 down and the bases loaded. Runners off with this pitch. And a dangerous man at the plate in Hayward. He has to come to him. On its way, the 3-2 pitch. We'll do it again. It's Friday night. Hayward connected for the 2-run homer in the 12th off of Kyle McClellan. I'm sure for Bridget McClellan, it's a special day. Her first Mother's Day as new mom. Fernando Salas as well with a brand new baby. Again. 3-2 pulled foul. How do you approach this situation, Rick? He's seen everything now.
Don't be afraid of that, though. Because if you're afraid of that, you'll try to pick and you'll try to be too nasty, and you may end up walking it. Just have your best stuff against his best stuff, and whatever happens, happens.
3-2 is hit out of play.
That's the defensive nature, Dan, that you have to stay away from. Make that kind of line about the 27 Yankees. Imagine pitching to Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Tony Lazzeri. I imagine that you get a little defensive. In your mind as a pitcher, there are times where you turn Jason Hayward into Babe Ruth.
Hayward hits it into the right field corner. This is trouble. One hops off the wall. Hayward will dig for two. And he has cleared the bases. Hayward makes it 3-0 Atlanta. Give him credit. Terrific at bat. Wins the battle against Lance Lynn. Derek Lilliquist out to visit. That's 79 pitches for Lance today, and this one was smoked.
Well, he went right at him. And Hayward wins the battle. No, he's not Babe Ruth, but he just picked up 3 RBIs in what could be a key at bat in this ballgame. Lance Lynn has been kind of playing with fire here. And he's got to find some way to get through this, gut it out. We saw Wainwright struggle to try to do the same thing yesterday.
Francisco will be the hitter. 3-0 Atlanta. Strike one. One ball, one strike. Lynn has just not looked very comfortable today. Popped up for Kyle, going out to call for it. The shortstop puts it away for the out. Braves strand one, but they pick up an early lead, 3-0 midway through 3. 2012 honorary Batgirl for the St. Louis Cardinals. Really a neat program that MLB has put together. It's either breast cancer survivors or their supporters, and it's held at every ballpark, raising awareness for breast cancer research.
And what a perfect place to spend Mother's Day, at the ballpark with your kids.
It was the one and only Ann Horton.
Thought I recognized her.
Did you get her green seats?
Hey, I know how to splurge.
Nice work. You must know somebody around here.
I do. You.
I did not help you with that green seat venture that Ann and your lovely children are enjoying today. That's great. 1-2 on Lance Lynn. So far, this has been a very disappointing weekend, and started out with such promise. The Tony La Russa night, excitement in the ballpark. Cardinals came from behind after trailing early in that game. They did that a couple of times. Strikeout of Lynn. Fans don't like that. The strike zone and the umpiring has been in question really from the opening night of this series with this crew.
Yeah, that's been disappointing, but it isn't the major problem for the Cardinals. Their
Not at all.
lack of production and their pitching is showing some cracks too. Not sure if Lance Lynn was trying to be defensive on that swing to get out of the way, or whether or not he offered at it, but he's rung up, and the Cardinals are going to have to find a way to pitch better. Starting pitching has been a key component of this team, and you're always going to have moments where you have those cracks. You just can't stay in that long.
Rafael Furcal, a walk and a steal. Look at that, up to 369, trailing only David Wright. Just keeps on hitting. Pitch that was up, lines it into center field. And we wondered at the start of our telecast, would the Cardinals be aggressive against Tommy Hanson? They were in the first. Let's see if they are here with one out for Call at the bag.
Another mislocation. Cardinals pick up their first hit of the afternoon. They've had a couple of walks. Location is meant to be down. There's the glove, but the ball's up, and Furcal gets his hands on top of it. And Mother's Day, May 13th, 2012, hitting the inside of the bag is Rafael Furcal. And I would think that he would try to steal sometime during this at-bat.
Extends his hitting streak to 12 games. Brings in John Jay. First time through the lineup, and Hanson struck out 6. Furcal is leaning at first, not running here. Jay pops it up. And that'll be out number 2. 2 away. Brings in Beltran with a runner at first and 2 down. Cardinals had runners at second and third and nobody out back in the first inning, and then 3 consecutive strikeouts. Beltran, Craig, and Berkman, and that was that.
And 2 of those outs from the left side in Berkman and Beltran, and lefty's batting over 300 against Hanson this year. He's been a lot tougher on the righty, which you could see with his breaking ball.
Good rip and foul back. Cardinals here at home are 8-6. Played very well on the road, 12-7. Redbirds will head out to the West Coast again. San Francisco and Los Angeles, upcoming road trip. 1 ball and 1 strike. One and 2.
Cardinals offense started out very hot in this series. Mike Minor gave up 6 runs, 8 hits, and 4 2/3 innings. But since then, Cardinal bats have gone quiet.
Two outs, runner at first, a ball and 2 strikes on Carlos Beltran. Cardinals trying to get on the board. And what a play here by Freeman. He said his goal is to win a Gold Glove this year, and he makes a great stop, and that may have saved a run with the speed of Furcal. So Freeman takes the hit away from Carlos Beltran. 3-0 Atlanta. Of tourism, go to visitmo.com to start planning your next Missouri getaway. You're taking a look at fantastic caverns in Springfield. This is America's only ride-through cave. Beauty of a natural cave without long walks or steep climbs. Find out more at visitmo.com. From that site to this beautiful site. Packed house at Busch Stadium. Cardinals trailing, though, 3-0. This is David Ross to lead it off for the Atlanta Braves. And the backup catcher trying to bunt his way on and surprise David Freese for strike 1. Day began with a nice ceremony for Chipper Jones. Not in the starting lineup today. I mentioned it last night, Rick. The fact is that if you're Freddie Gonzalez and this is hit out to deep left, Craig won't get it. 2 hops and off the wall, and David Ross is in with a stand-up double. But trying to figure out the right times to play Chipper Jones, keep him fresh, but also, you know, to make sure you reward him for the fans as well that want to give him that last standing O.
Kind of an interesting thing about this game, isn't it? Where you mentioned it earlier, he comes to St. Louis and you boo him. He hasn't really had a lot of success against the Cardinals, but you know, we just know he's a good player on the other team and not a guy that got a lot of cheers here. But the way the Cardinal fans reacted and the way they're doing throughout the National League when Chipper Jones goes from town to town is a pretty cool thing. If all the fans understand, you're a fan of baseball to some degree. You're a fan of your local team, yes, but you really do want to honor somebody who's had a Hall of Fame type career, and Chipper Jones certainly is deserving of that.
Did you ever see that? A guy on his farewell tour, were you ever a teammate or opposing anybody that was going through that?
Pete Rose wasn't on a farewell tour, but he was on his hit tour, where every place he'd go at the end of his career, they were keeping the baseballs. Every hit that he gave up, his last 100 or so, and they were keeping them, and he was signing them, and they were going to autograph them and auction them off and save them for Cooperstown. And I remember Ken Daly gave up about 3 of them. He said, "I'm tired of them stopping the game when I'm pitching."
Lance Lynn from Lance Berkman. There's the out. One of a dying breed, you could say. Chipper Jones, 20 major league seasons, but most years with one team. He's had 23 in their organization, but 20 in the big leagues. Then you have the great Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter, 2 Hall of Famers. Todd Helton, 16 major league years with the Colorado Rockies. You always have the debate, it seems like, with Rocky players looking at their numbers. Larry Walker, a good example, until the humidor was put in play. Just how some of the voters will look at the numbers of a Todd Helton. Infield is drawn in, and it's off the glove of Lance Lynn. Slows it up just a bit. Hansen can't drive him in, and staying put, it's Ross.
Saved a run.
Sure did. I'll go 1-6-3 on that play, and we're back to the top of the lineup in Michael Bourne.
Really just flailed his glove from behind him, and for a call, never stopped chasing that ball. Not looking at it. He knows it's somewhere.
And now Bourne, who is 1 for 2 with a single, and he struck out. This guy has had great numbers against St. Louis since about the midway point of last year. Remember, he spent time with Houston, as we've talked about, so we saw him plenty in the Central, and now with the Atlanta Braves. Big gap into right center. 2 balls and 1 strike. Lynn today has walked 3. He's hit a man, struck out 5, allowed 3 runs, 1 swing of the bat by Hayward, 4 base hits. Count is full. (3-2) is pulled foul. And again, Rick, it's a 3-2 breaking ball from Lance Lynn. Seen that a lot. Pitch count is up there at 94. We'll do it again. Ground ball, right side. Berkman there. Race to the bag. Lynn. Yes, they got him. Barely got him as Lynn beats him to the bag. The element of speed coming into play. And Lance Lynn, did he get him? Did he beat him to the bag? Good call. StLouis.com. And right now at Jack in the Box, you can try the new Chicken Club combo for just $4.99 plus tax. Gorgeous day in St. Louis. Happy Mother's Day. Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin with you. And Tommy Hanson pitching well as we move to the Cardinals half of the fourth. 3-0 Atlanta Braves lead. Craig Cole out on strikes his first time up and pops one foul and out of play. We were concerned last night about Wainwright having a short outing because of the depth in the bullpen, and you may have that concern today as the pitch count has gotten up there for Lance Lynn.
Fernando Salas made that less of a problem yesterday by having an extended relief outing. He was very sharp. That was really good to see him back on track again for Mike Matheny. And this is where it gets a little bit tough as a manager. Try to figure out how to handle your club when things don't go well. Certainly been a tough series for St. Louis.
0-2 the count on Craig.
A lot of faith in the manager. He gets people. He's a strong leader. And he is not going to be phased.
You mentioned that you were in coaching before and did that with the Cleveland Indians. What did you find was the toughest transition for guys that have played this game at a high level and then all of a sudden to be a coach or manager?
I actually thought the hardest thing, and I could think Mike would be similar in this, kind of think the hardest thing is going to be to kind of get on players because you're kind of relational, and Mike's very much that way, and you think, well, you know what, I can't see me kind of getting in the face of a player, and it takes about a week and you realize you have no problem at all doing it.
You're ready to do it
because you're trying to make them better, and you realize it's your responsibility, and you have to not be a player anymore relationally. You have to get past the, you're not their buddy, you're their leader.
Strikeout number 7 for Hanson. Craig 0 for 2 with a pair of Ks. It brings in Berkman.
See the bad angle?
Squaring it up, right?
Squaring it up towards foul territory, unfortunately.
In steps Berkman. Offense last night and again today. Very quiet. Just one hit for St. Louis. It was for Cowell back in the third. Berkman struck out with 2 runners on. First time up. His return from the disabled list. Get a look at the defense here behind Hansen. You've got the shortstop Pasternak. He's on the outfield grass behind second base. This is hit to Ugla. Couple of hops in, an easy play. From a pitcher's perspective, though, Rick, you think about all the video and what the charts say. Still, at times, they talk about that for a pitcher. You've heard a lot of guys say this. They'd rather just play it straight up, let me pitch my game, and don't worry about what the hitter's done.
Well, and I think you over-adjust and you say, well, we're going to play him to pull, which means you need to pitch him inside all the time. Well, you're not going to pitch a guy inside. You're going to have to establish both sides of the plate, and I think it's kind of a
Freeze with a high fly ball. Hayward is back near the wall with room and makes the catch right in front of the FS Midwest sign. He gave it a ride. Cardinals still with only 1 hit.
We're going to take a look back at the 1989 Cardinals tomorrow at 5:30 on Fox Sports Midwest. 3-0 Atlanta. Cardinals with just 1 hit through 4 innings. Beautiful day here at Busch Stadium. We're all celebrating Mother's Day together at the ballpark and would like to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Atlanta Braves, who are playing very good baseball. They're having an outstanding road trip. 6-2 so far. Celebrating Chipper Jones every place they go.
I wonder from Chipper's perspective, too, as you get a look at Martin Prado, all that attention that is thrust in his direction. He gets concerned about that at all being a distraction, especially when you get later into the season. Home games. And his team's very competitive. It's not like they're going to be out of the race. They should be in it from here on out, you would anticipate.
Tough division.
Ground ball hit to short. 1 away. A switch hitter and one of the best that baseball has ever seen. 459 home runs, only trailing Eddie Murray and Mickey Mantle. How about Lance Berkman? He's on that list. Carlos Beltran. So you have 3 of the top switch hitters on display today.
Chili Davis, the biggest surprise to me on that list. Not that he's on the list, but that he's that high up at 350. Good player. He traveled around a little bit. When you think of power switch hitters, of course, you think of Mickey Mantle first.
All your travels, did you ever meet the Mick?
I never met him. He was there for an old timers game in Yankee Stadium. He was visiting with the White Sox. DiMaggio was there. Whitey Ford. I mean, they could pull out some Hall of Famers.
A liner into center and right at Jay off the bat of Freddie Freeman. Two away. Pitch count at 101. And Lynn is due up third, and so this is one of those decisions for Mike Matheny. Do you extend Lance Lynn, try to squeeze one more inning out of him?
No.
And that's your answer.
That's mine. That's not the manager's answer.
We'll see what Mike does. I'm inclined to agree with you, especially if this goes into a deep count with Uggla.
And what we always understand full well, Dan, is that the manager always has more information than we have about how the player feels on that particular day and whether or not he's figured something out. And I mean, there's a lot of variables going into making a decision as a manager, and it's some of that information you only know if you're in the dugout. You only know if you look into the eyes of the player. Mike was talking about looking into Kyle Loesch's eyes when he asked him how he felt, and he said, I was going to know in his eyes when I asked that question what my decision was going to be about taking him out when he hurt his hamstring.
Fans that don't remember, that was his last start in Arizona.
And he hurt his hamstring rounding second and made an awkward kind of half slide into third. And Mike just felt that it was time for him to be out.
We'll see Loesch coming up. And his next start will be on Tuesday night against Paul Maholm, who's 4-2 for the Cubbies. And it's off to San Francisco. The 2-2. Strikeout of Uggla. Lynn is through 5, and the Cardinals trail 3-0. 75th Budweiser is bringing fans ages 21 and older the second Stein in the championship series, highlighting the Cardinals' 2011 World Series win over the Texas Rangers. Log on to Cardinals.com to get your tickets for Championship Stein Day, presented by Budweiser. Want to know on Descalso. Struck out looking back in the second. Descalso, Cruz, and then Lynn's spot is up. There was action in the Cardinals bullpen not even a minute ago. And you wonder if that pitcher, whoever is going to come in, just gets up, throws, and then you get 2 outs up on the board and ramps it up a little bit.
Takes about 50 throws for a starter to get ready. A reliever, 20 or so, depending upon the weather.
There's Jason Mott. He has said before it would take him 2 or 3 throws, and he could be in a game and ready to pitch.
Well, relievers understand that you have to count the 8 that you're going to get out on the mound as well.
Exactly. The 2-2 pitch.
Well, Lynn doesn't look like a guy who's been taken out of this ball game. He's got his bat and his helmet ready. Of course, it could be a bunting situation for him, and you would keep him in if the Cardinals have a runner on base. Perhaps you do that. If it's 2 outs, nobody on, maybe you pinch hit.
Andy Pettitte making his first start for the Yankees since 2010 today. Back in pinstripes. A 3-2 pitch. Good at bat by Descalso, and it's a leadoff walk. Six is a serious number. Cardinals score 6 and get any size drink all day tomorrow for just 50 cents. 6 is a seriouser number. Cruz 0 for 1. Start today in place of Yadier Molina. Descalso a big lead at first. Have to think, Rick, with base runners on, and regardless of what happens here, pull the trigger and try to get something going offensively and then go to your bullpen. Lynn is on deck. Oh, 0-2 on Cruz.
Mike Matheny told us recently just how much time he spends throwing batting practice to Tony Cruz, trying to keep him sharp. He said clearly there's nothing like getting game experience, but he would try to pitch him in, throw him pitches away, and he throws every day, Mike does, to the early hitters. And he just really feels it's his obligation to keep Tony Cruz as game ready as he can. Feels bad. He knows he swings the bat well. He's just not getting a lot of at-bats. When you're behind Yadier Molina, how can you?
You mentioned yesterday that Brian Anderson, his numbers have been very poor so far offensively at AAA.
Less than 150 batting average, and there's a few guys struggling down at AAA, although Matt Adams is not one of them. He's at 330, continues to just pound the baseball, the first baseman. And John Mozeliak said, I would not hesitate if there was a need and we needed a guy with some pop. He's major league ready. Speaking of Adams, not a high round draft choice either. He really impressed in spring training, though.
If Berkman comes back, you have Craig. Question becomes, where do you put all these guys? You're getting way ahead of yourself, but still, it's something that if you're John Mozeliak, you have to think about, and that's upstairs to Cruz. That'll get your attention. 3-2.
Wow.
Cardinals with just one hit today. The Astros, by the way, 8 consecutive games without reaching double-digit hits. Strikeout of Cruz. That's 8 strikeouts for Tommy Hanson. Now, if you hit with Lance Lynn here, does that tell you for certain that he goes back out and pitches the 6th?
You would think so. The only other alternative would be that Matheny wants to play for at least a run here, and that he's going to bunt Lance Lynn. Not necessarily play for the big inning, but at least play to get a tally against Hanson.
They're anticipating the bunt, and Lynn is swinging and fouls one away.
So much for that.
And you wonder then about the availability of some of those relievers. And, you know, not every game are we told this guy's available, this guy's off limits. So,
and there's reasons for that.
Yeah, and obvious reasons. So that comes into play too. You think about that. Check on Descalso.
We tease the players from time to time about giving those pat answers to questions that, by how do you feel and how's your, oh, it's good, and just playing it one day at a time. All those things are often covers for not wanting to give out too much information that would be helpful to the other team. And it's, you know, it's competition. If a lefty's not available on a certain night, that might change the way the other manager approaches the game and approaches certain situations.
Here's the 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. But Tommy Hanson walked the first 2 in this game back in the first inning. Then he strikes out the side. He strikes out the next 2, so 5 in a row. He's allowed just 1 base hit. That was to Furcal back in the 3rd to extend his hitting streak. He's walked a total of 3, and he struck out 8. Possibly soon to be 9. 1-2 on Lynn.
Lynn has been decent with the bat, average almost at 200. 4 games in a row he had a hit.
That is number 9. What's on Tap is brought to you by Budweiser, and note the start time tomorrow. It's at 6:05, our first pitch, and the pregame show at 5:30. Ryan Dempster and Jake Westbrook. Dempster, record not indicative of just how well he has pitched. One of the best ERAs in baseball, 1.02. Here's Rafael Furcal. A walk and a single, stolen base, and twice he has been stranded. Cardinals easily could have had their second hit of the game by Beltran back in the 3rd with Furcal at first. He was robbed by Freddie Freeman. Little check swing, slowly hit to short. Pasternicki, no play. It's a base hit. Things are going right for Rafael Furcal.
Kind of a magician, isn't he, with that bat in his hand? Some guys are power hitters and wield it. Other guys just know just what to do with it to get base hits. And when things are going well, this kind of stuff happens. Pasternicki playing him up the middle. Had to come in and go towards the third base side. Not a good angle to throw on to first base. So the Cardinals with a chance to get on the board here.
Two down and 2 on. Redbirds have stranded 3 today.
Matheny has a pretty solid bullet on his bench if he gets into a power situation in Matt Holliday.
Two and 0. Jay with a ground ball to the right side. Umbra makes the play. Cardinals strand 2. And we have played 5 on this Mother's Day from Busch Stadium in St. Louis. 3-0 Braves. To you by AT&T, the nation's largest 4G network. AT&T, rethink possible. And find a helpful servicing Steel dealer near you. Visit steeldealers.com. Jason Hayward, the big blow in this game. Bases loaded double that scored 3. And that's the difference. Lance Lynn is at 107 pitches. Season high is 110. He's been over 91 in only 3 of his 6 starts before today.
2 of the plus reasons for sending him back out for another inning, and it's certainly the question. But one of the plus reasons you mentioned already is saving the bullpen some, and that's an extra inning, and that may make a difference. There's Victor Marte getting loose for St. Louis. But the second thing is that Lynn has retired 6 of the last 7 batters, and he appears to have righted the ship a bit. And maybe the idea is to get him back out there and get some more positive vibes going and finish strong.
Hayward, a bouncer towards first, and Lance Berkman back in the lineup today and puts it away. Brings in Francisco, who is 0 for 2.
How many times have we seen Dana pitcher that we know is getting extended a bit, maybe towards the top end of his pitch count, and you see a team come in and make 3 outs on 7 pitches.
Exactly.
We've seen that a
Happens
lot.
all the time.
It really does.
And sometimes you wonder if that pitcher is just so conscious about making sure to be aggressive, keep the pitch count as low as you can, and then you wonder, well, why isn't that the mindset from the first pitch?
If it were only so easy.
Exactly. Little bit low, 1 ball, 1 strike. Cruz called off by Freeze, who makes the catch. 2 away. The adult cap is coming up, presented by U.S. Cellular. That's Saturday, May 26th. Phillies will be in town. The adult cap, Saturday, May 26th. David Ross with a double. And also struck out back in the 2nd inning. I think another thing you have to look at, we've mentioned it before, but 91 pitches, that's all that Lance Lynn had in the previous start against Arizona, so that may play a factor in Mike's decision.
Lance Lynn has only given up 4 hits in this game. The control was an issue earlier. In fact, he is 2nd in the league, Dan, in BABIP, which I know is your favorite stat. Batting average with balls in play. Only Matt Cain for San Francisco has a lower average. That's 197, which to me is an indication. That statistic from a pitcher's point of view is how defensive the swings are for the other team. If your BABIP is low and his is at 209, the batting average of balls in play, that means a lot of defensive swings against Lance Lynn for the most part in 2012. And you can see that with the kind of stuff he has.
He's now at 119 in that pitch count. In many ways, saving the bullpen this afternoon. Rick Horton, a student of sabermetrics. The 2-2. Right below us.
A C+ student of sabermetrics.
Part of the game. And becoming more critical, I think, in terms of how baseball is looked at this level.
Very good tool. Teams are positioning themselves defensively using sabermetrics, and it's a tool that you want in the hands of the experts.
6 strikeouts for Lynn. Part of the order coming up.
T U-verse reverse recap. Tommy Hanson, after a rough first inning, has settled down, giving the Cardinals just 2 hits. Lance Lynn struggled as well in that first inning, and he gave up 3 runs in the Braves' third, thanks to Jason Hayward, and Mrs. Fredbird is on hand for Mother's Day and thrilling the crowd between innings, and Mrs. Fredbird can sure dance.
Just take it in right now, Rick. Good stuff. Good stuff. Here's Beltran. Funny the old ballpark, Rick.
I'd be having more fun if the Cardinals were getting more hits.
Good stuff. Fun at the old ballpark here, Horton.
You okay, Dan?
I'm great.
Good.
Here's
just checking.
2-0 pitch and a check swing and a strike, 2-1. Couldn't be better. 90 pitches today for Hanson. Two and two. And yet again, it's another full count. Would seem like the pitch count would be higher for Tommy Hanson, but it's not.
Especially with the high number of strikeouts. Fair number of those were kind of 1, 2, 3.
Beltran cranks one out to deep right. Hayward is back. It is gone. It's into the bullpen. Finally, the Cardinals can put one up on the board. Beltran, his 13th home run.
Seen it a lot, Dan. The easy swing of Carlos Beltran.
Alan Craig 0 for 2. And that's a base hit out to left. Nissan drive of the game, the 13th home run this season already for right fielder Carlos Beltran.
He's now past Matt Kemp. Dodgers are scoreless in their game in Los Angeles, early going. Beltran with that home run, now the National League leader. That was a line drive. Most of his homers have come from the left side, but he has been very productive from both sides.
What a series for Carlos Beltran. Pair of home runs on Friday. His first hit ever against Hanson just moments ago. You see opponents average through the lineup, third time through, over 300.
And we talked about left-handers hitting him better. 10th home run of the season from the left side for Beltran. Berkman 0 for 2. Still looking for that right timing. Day 1 off the DL. Been a little bit off balance so far. Kind of jumping at the ball a bit. See his feet moving on that pitch, way out of the strike zone, but not the normal kind of quiet feet of Lance Berkman that we're used to.
One swing of the bat and this game is tied up. .386 feet distance of that home run. And that's a base hit out to left. Berkman's first hit in his return to the lineup.
And now an 8-game hitting streak with a bit of an interruption for Lance Berkman. They play him the pull, and he hits the ball the other way.
It is his bobblehead day. And David Freese will dig in. That's it for Tommy Hanson. We'll tell you about the change when we come back. Here come the Redbirds. Was the last pitcher to begin a season with a win in his first 7 starts. Brandon Webb, 2008 with Arizona.
Cy Young Award winner that year.
The Braves go to the bullpen. Hanson is out. 2 runners on. The go-ahead run is at the plate. It's our Chevy call to the pen.
Chad Durbin, saw him in game 1. Picked up a strikeout in the 3rd of an inning in that game. And just like that, Tommy Hanson went from mowing the Cardinals down to giving up 3 straight rockets.
Lynn Freese watching. David's mom. Freese out to center. And shading from the sun to make the catch, Michael Bourne.
Bourne had trouble with that ball right off the bat, and interesting how he kind of ran to the side of the ball, played it off to the side, even with the glasses, trying to shade the sun with his glove. He's able to make the play, but it was not an easy one for Michael Bourne. That was probably 10 times harder to catch that ball than it looked, with where the sun was.
A double switch, and it looks like Chipper Jones is coming into this ball game. And we'll step aside with Descalso due up. 3-1 Atlanta. a reliever last year by Eric O'Flaherty. A lefty or Chevy called to the pen, and he'll get Matt Holliday. Pinch hitting for Descalso. Holliday, big rip on the first pitch. There's so many things you think about with this move. And Mike Matheny not wasting any time and going with Matt Holliday in this spot. You mentioned it. That's his big bullet, and he's going to use it right now.
Either that or you use it later against their closer.
0-2 on Matt Holliday.
And you like the matchup, certainly, Holliday against his left-hander. And if you're O'Flaherty warming up in the bullpen, here's some insight, too, into his head. He's warming up the pitch to Daniel Descalso. He has to be playing out the scenario, what if I have to face Matt Holliday? What am I going to do? And as he's preparing, he has to be thinking about that possibility.
It's part of a double switch. Chipper Jones received a nice round of applause during our break. He's now at third base. O'Flaherty, last season, the lowest ERA Major League history of any pitcher with 75 or more appearances, .98. Strikes out Holliday. Big strikeout there.
Went down and in on Holliday, got ahead of him. That was the hard part. Then he just finished him off with that slider down and in. Off the plate, couldn't lay off. Well, that's your big bullet, but there's some other bullets left. Yadier Molina, skip Schumacher off the bench if needed.
Carpenter and Green. Green will more than likely come in and play at second base. You would have to assume. You could also keep Holliday in the game and move Craig to second if you wanted. Cruz, bouncer to short. Pasternak bobbles, and the bases are loaded.
Looks like he got his feet tangled up more than anything else. The hands were okay, but his feet kind of came together, threw him off balance. The ball pops out. And they're going to call that a base hit, an infield hit for Tony Cruz.
So here is Tyler Green. Green with the bases loaded. I want to go over a quick scouting report on Tyler. That's it for Lance Lynn officially now being pinch hit for. Lynn gives the Cardinals 6 innings. And he allows the 3 runs on one swing of the bat by Jason Hayward.
We talked at the time about that being a very important at bat, and it's proven to be so for Lance Lynn, who's trying to win for the 7th straight time. His inability to finish off that particular inning is the difference in this game. Love to get him off the hook. Lynn has been what Kyle McClellan was to the Cardinals last year. McClellan was 5-0 on Mother's Day last year. And helping out a staff that was without Adam Wainwright, had a struggling Chris Carpenter, at least as far as wins are concerned. And Lynn has meant a lot to this club.
Look at that, 4 for 18 with runners in scoring position, 7 for 22 in that sweep over Arizona. Just a week ago, last Sunday, Tyler Green with the 2-home run day at Houston. Cardinals got on the board with a home run by Beltran, back-to-back hits by Craig and Berkman, infield hit by Cruz. Bases loaded, and the 1-2. Popped up right side, and that'll find the seats out of play. If not for Josh Hamilton, Carlos Beltran would be the hottest hitter on the planet right now. "13 homers for Carlos. Now with 32 driven in. 1-2 pitch to Green. Strikeout of Green, and that's how the inning comes to a close. Thrilling semifinal matches in history. Fox Sports is proud to bring you the exclusive coverage of the UEFA Champions League final, and that'll be Saturday at 1 only on Fox. Marte is into the ball game. Green stays in, and it's 3-1 in favor of the Atlanta Braves. 9 hits combined, a lot of strikeouts. Cardinals have stranded 8 today.
Promising bottom of the 6th inning that started out with Beltran's home run just kind of fizzled. Victor Marte has been very good out of the Cardinal bullpen. Shown a good fastball, a hard slider, and decent command.
Bob and Aggie Siriati. Always talk about Aggie. They are now great-great-grandparents. There's a fastball and a strike to Pasternicki. Because Katie and Marty have had a baby. Avery Grace, 6 pounds 9 ounces at 2:33 today. So congratulations to Avery Grace, newest Cardinal fan, Katie and Marty, proud parents, and especially Bob and Aggie Siriati. 0-2 the count. Lance Lynn, 6 innings, 3 runs, 4 hits. Struck out 3, walked 3, 121 pitches on the afternoon. There's that slider, freeze, do or die, bare hands, no play. It's a base hit.
No chance for David Freese. We haven't seen Pasternicki run. In fact, he does not have a stolen base attempt, but showed some speed getting down the line. And Chipper Jones, perhaps his last at bat in St. Louis.
In the postseason, it's been very good against the Cardinals. Look at that average. But regular season play, Cardinals have held him in check. 245 average.
About a third of his season. 5 home runs. 23 RBIs. That's below his norm.
Runner goes, and Cruz fires to second. Safe. Stolen base for Pasternicki. His first, as Rick mentioned, has not had one prior to that stolen base. Not bad at all there by Cruz. That was close.
And some of that's batting in the 8th spot in front of the pitcher. Be less likely to go in a lot of different situations when you're in that spot. There's the bang bang throw. High tag on the throw. Good throw from Cruz.
Mentioned last night coaching for the Indians and seeing Chipper Jones and Manny Ramirez the same field. You knew that those two would be major league players before too long. Swing and a strikeout of Chipper Jones.
Chipper was a shortstop and just stood, walked, swung, threw like a big leaguer.
Michael Bourne, 5:30 tomorrow with the pregame show. Bobby Cox said the same thing. Bobby Cox was brought out to take a look at players in a high school competition and all-star game, and he said, that guy right there, he's pretty good, isn't he? To the people that were running the draft, and they said, yep. He said, I think that's the guy we need.
Players can pick each other out. Just literally the way you sit, the way you walk, just your movements. There's a certain grace of a player. And remember, as I was flying down to play winter ball in Dominican, there was a guy on the plane, and my wife said, is that guy a player? And I said, no, look how uncoordinated he is. Look, his arms are skinny. He says, there's no way that guy's a player. And he's just got a guy on his honeymoon coming to the Dominican. It was Oral Hershiser.
He was pretty good.
He was pretty good. So you're not always right.
Right.
I've told Oral that story, and he doesn't really like that story.
He was a cerebral type pitcher, yes.
He's reading a book.
The Bulldog.
Very, very cerebral.
There was talk that he would be involved with the ownership group of the LA Dodgers, led by Magic Johnson. We'll see the Dodgers in the next road trip. San Francisco and LA. And Rick, you had a chance to play for franchises that have so much history for them. St. Louis, Chicago White Sox, another team that isn't talked in those terms, about in those terms, because of the lack of wins in postseason until 2005. But LA Dodgers, another one. The 3-1.
Dodgers a lot like the Cardinals, a lot of phenomenal former players, Hall of Famers. Tradition of winning, like the Yankees.
It's expected. Cardinals will face Dempster tomorrow. Mahalam will go on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Jaime Garcia. Afternoon baseball Thursday, Wainwright and Matt Cain. Cain is 2-2. But again, the stellar ERA for Matt Cain. No Lincecum on that quick swing through San Francisco. The schedule is set up this year. We have 2 visits to LA. Be out there later this season. Here's a 3-2 pitch to Michael Bourne. Got him. The stock is rising a bit here for Marte, where he was at the beginning of the season to what we have right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Crowd today of 45,729. 45729. It's a lot of David Freese bobbleheads out there. Everybody in the park today got the bobblehead. Now Cruz wants to talk with Marte.
That run just feels like a big run out there at second base, Dan, the way the Cardinals offense has been the last couple of days. And knowing the Braves back end of their bullpen.
Taken low, 1-0. 2 outs, runner at second base, Martin Prado. And that's a line drive, base hit out to left. Run will score to make it 4-1. So the infield hit on an 0-2 pitch by Pasternicki comes back to haunt the Cardinals and Marte. RBI for Prado. That's his second hit. And it brings in Freddie Freeman. Back to a 3-run lead.
Breaking pitch, not a bad location. Might have hung just a little bit in terms of the sharpness of the break. And as I mentioned, Dan, that's just a big run.
Freeman with a strikeout. That was in the first. He walked and scored in the third and has also flied out to center. And time is called. It's one of those series, Rick, where if you win Friday night, sets the tone going in both directions for either side. You win the game on Friday, who knows what happens yesterday, and the carryover effect of a long night, 12 innings, and having a chance to win like the Cardinals did. They could not pull it off, and then they lose that game with the home run by Hayward. Last night, Braves dominated for the most part, especially pitching, and today they lead it 4-1. Two and 1. Are you a big believer in momentum in the game of baseball, carrying from game to game, not so much inside the 9 innings?
I think it's a factor. There's the physical part of this game. There's the mental part of it. And there's a contagious part of that as well. It's not just the individual player. It's how kind of it permeates the clubhouse and the dugout. I mean, there are times where you go to the ballpark and you know you're going to win. And you can't explain that. You just know it.
The 2-2 and now a stolen base. No chance as Marte looked like he just forgot about Prado. Didn't even look over, and it's a steal.
Like any sport, Dan, that momentum can shift. And sometimes it shifts quickly, and it looked as if it was going to shift quickly for the Cardinals in the bottom of the 6th. And the bats came out blazing after having trouble getting to Tommy Hanson. Then all of a sudden they were hitting ropes. You thought, well, maybe this is a turn. Maybe this is one of those momentum shifts. And it just didn't happen.
I will say this too, Rick. Looking at this team currently constructed, the Atlanta Braves, this is a very good team.
No doubt.
Very good. Good lineup, good starting pitching. Back into their bullpen is loaded.
And they better be with the division they're playing. The Nationals are better. Mets are a little better than I thought they'd be. And the Phillies will be there.
It's an aging team, and they've got some big decisions coming up. You know, you think about Cole Hamels, free agent to be. By the end of this month, many believe around baseball, you have a pretty good idea of just what kind of team you've got. You've seen them in spring training. You've got 2 months regular season play under your belt. Boy, he went down to get that. Hits it out to right. A run will score, and this makes it 5-1 Atlanta. Just a pitching wedge out there. Picks up the double, and that's 2 against Marte. I mean, he went down to get that. You could see that from up here.
Kind of a rolling off-speed pitch. Really just hooks that into the corner.
Marte's thinking, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Well, there's location, Dan. There's also sharpness to a pitch, and his breaking ball is just a little bit bigger than we've seen it. Not quite as sharp.
2 outs, and here's Uggla. One of your favorites has begun, and that's the wave. RBI for Freddie Freeman. That's number 28. Uggla today struck out twice. He has walked and a run scored. Cubs in the bottom of the 8th, leading their game against Milwaukee. That's 5-2. Chicago in town tomorrow. McClellan is up and throwing. Under the watchful eye of Dyer Miller out there. Long-time baseball man.
It's nice to have a Dyer Miller on days like this. He's one of those guys that has the appropriate pat on the back and the positive attitude and the, you know, hey, we've been there before and we'll get out of this, and almost kind of the fatherly advice to the pitchers and really just to the team in general. You need to have kind of the non-panic people around when things aren't going well. And Dyer's always been that kind of guy. Very positive, good teacher of the game. Really seen it all. Had a good big league career. He's coached for years and years.
3-1, 8 out to right. This will make it 6-1. Gets past Beltran, and Uggla drives in a run, his 22nd of the year. Well, this weekend is all Atlanta Braves. It's now 6-1. 3 runs charged to Marte.
Again, bad location, up and away.
Mike Matheny will go to Cal McClellan. With 2 outs in the top of the 7th, we'll have the change as Kyle coming to pitch. Difference maker of the day. Take you back to the 3rd inning. Bases loaded, fouled off a bunch of pitches, and then he hits a rope down the right field line. Here's McClellan. These two saw each other on Friday night, and the difference maker that night was Jason Hayward. A 2-run homer off of McClellan.
Going inside on Hayward in this at bat. The home run that he gave up was on a fastball away. Hayward got his arms extended. You mentioned, Dan, that Hayward was having a little trouble last year hitting that pitch inside, backed off the plate a bit. Sure showed some power the other way, didn't he?
He sure did. You see how far he is away from the plate, and it's a swing and a miss, a strikeout, and McClellan sends us to the bottom of the 7th. Time to stretch on this Mother's Day. Cardinals fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the Redbirds. Happy Mother's Day here from Busch Stadium in St. Louis, along with Rick Horton. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Chris Duncan and Pat Paris coming up on the post-game show. And this is Rafael Furcal against O'Flaherty. There's a grounder and a base hit. Hits just keep on coming for Rafael Furcal.
Infield hit his last time up. This time the ball knocked down by the pitcher. Ends up another infield hit. Flaherty has a shot at it. Just doesn't come up with it. Redirects it. Furcal's been on base all 4 times.
And here is John Jay, and he takes a ball on the outside corner. You never know who may pop in the booth. Say hello. It's pulled foul. 1 ball, 1 strike.
One of the disappointments, Dan, of this series is the Cardinals just not playing well at home. If they're not able to come back today, they go to 8-7 here at Busch Stadium. They've actually played better on the road so far.
There's a ground ball to short. Pasternacky. What a play here. Well, that's nifty right there with his back to the infield. A backhanded play. 6-4 on the fielder's choice. That's nicely done, huh?
Terry Pendleton was talking about the athleticism of Pasternacky, and we certainly see it here. Spins on the backhand, and then a little backhanded shovel pass to second base, and almost turning 2 is Dan Uggla.
Here's Beltran. Turn him around. It's from this side of the plate, and he's picked up the only run for St. Louis, a solo home run to right field. Landed in the Cardinals bullpen. His 13th of the year. 0-2. Andy Pettit, 6 1/3 today. 4 runs and a 6-2 loss. How concerned right now, if you're Mike Matheny, do you get with a young pitcher like Lance Lynn, just turned 25 yesterday, but you know, thinking ahead to that next start with the pitch count and how deep he went today in the pitch count as Beltran pulls it foul?
2 different questions. How concerned are you, and how much do you show that concern? And if you're Mike Matheny, he has to be a rock right now for a team that is not playing well, including a couple of pitchers who are struggling. Adam Wainwright, his outing yesterday, and more to your point, Lance Lynn today. So yeah, you've got to have some concern, but I think you have to continue to believe in your players. Cardinals have Westbrook and Loesch against Dempster and Mahalam in the Cubs series. You just have to hope that the ship gets righted and keep pushing forward. Very little adversity for the Cardinals, and you go all the way back to spring training. You're going to talk about adversity for the Cardinals. You would say Chris Carpenter's injury is certainly that. But going past that, very little. Injuries, yeah. Berkman, Schumacher, and every team has those.
Lance Lynn with 121 pitches. Retired the final 9 that he saw as Craig picks up another base hit. today, a famous day in St. Louis Cardinals baseball history. Stan the Man got his 3,000th hit. May 13th, 1958. Wrigley Field. Showed you the numbers of Chipper Jones, not too far away from 500 home runs, not too far away from 3,000 hits. Will not reach those milestones, but very, very close. Here's the 0-1 pitch, and strike 2 on Lance Berkman.
MVP to his credit, batting champion,
World champion,
all-star multiple times. Pretty good resume.
And really played all over the place for the Atlanta Braves, as you talked about. Initially a shortstop, then he had an injury. He's played third base. He also played outfield for a while.
Quite a few injuries in his career too, and there were times where he was out for weeks, and you wonder what those numbers that you mentioned, Dan, would be if he'd have been 100% healthy. Maybe that's too much to ask for. Not everybody can be Cal Ripken.
It's definitely, though, something that you have to think about. Where would those numbers be if not for the injuries? You've got to have a great passion to play this long, too, because he's made a ton of money. So it's not why you come back for the money. You come back because you love it.
Missed a whole year, 1994. 2010, only 300 at-bats.
And Berkman is swinging a miss. That sends us to the 8th. 6-1 Atlanta. Sports update. Let's check in with Pat Perez. All right, thank you. And Andy Pettit trying to add some stability to that Yankee rotation. Eric Hinsky is the batter. Henske was not rather suspended, but was ejected on Friday night, arguing balls and strikes.
Always had power, just 3 for 18 as a pinch hitter this year.
Backhanded by Green, knocks it down and makes the play. Had a chance to visit with Camden Burkemper, who was up here with us. Young man that has dealt with an awful lot. Glad that he was able to stop in and say hello. All of 7 years old.
You have a new friend.
You bet. 1 out, and David Ross, the hitter. Well, Atlanta, Rick, has got to feel pretty good about themselves with the way that this trip is finished up, and the trip as a whole. They'll go back home, and they will be 22-13 if they hold on for the win.
Be a 7-2 road trip for them. They have good starting pitching, and they have some pitchers in AAA too who they're excited about. Other good young pitchers. We saw a couple of them in spring training. Not quite ready yet, but Freddie Gonzalez, a lot to smile about.
Saw him with the Marlins primarily. Second year with the Atlanta Braves. He takes over for Bobby Cox. The meltdown of last year, but trying to turn the page, and looks like they have.
We talked a little bit about the anatomy of the meltdown. When things start to go bad, you don't want to change too many things and all of a sudden start messing with what had worked earlier. Cardinals in that situation now, maybe after a rough weekend. Okay, do we make 5 changes now? Change the batting order, change the rotation, bring somebody up. You know, you're going to have pressure. Mike Matheny's going to have pressure to do all those things. So is John Mozeliak. And, you know, at some point you just have to kind of trust that you've got the right guys. Just had a bad weekend. Move on.
You were talking about Dyer Miller. He's seen so much in the game, and that steady, calming voice. And that's probably the aspect that you're talking about. You just don't get too high, you don't get too low. It's cliche, but it very much is true in the game of baseball.
I think Derek Lilliquist is a lot like that too. He's a little younger than Dyer, but big league experience like Dyer. In fact, a lot of it with the Atlanta Braves. And Lily's kind of one of those soft-spoken guys too that knows how to say the right thing, knows how to be a psychologist with your pitchers. And the pitchers are the ones you worry about. They're the ones that tend to kind of junk their best stuff and move to something else just to make a change, and sometimes that's for the worse.
For those of you that have tuned in late, you see the wristbands, the pink wristbands, some pink bats and spikes being worn by the players today. Honor of Mother's Day, breast cancer awareness. That's a foul ball. Play here in the 8th, and Chipper Jones is on deck. See him bat at least one more time.
McClellan looked sharp this afternoon. Good breaking ball there.
In the air out to left center, and tracking it down, John Jay.
Third baseman, Chipper Jones.
Every time he has come up, nice round of applause for Chipper Jones all weekend long. Arguably his best moments on the road at Shea Stadium in New York. Break the hearts of Mets fans time after time. All the showdowns that those two franchises had for a number of years. Actually named one of his sons Shea. 3-0 on Chipper Jones. Concern for the Cardinals this ball game today and yesterday. They're hitting and timely hitting, but also a lot of walks here today, Rick. And the lineup struck out a lot, but the pitching staff started with Lance Lynn last night with Wainwright, but a lot of walks contributes to some big innings.
Uncharacteristic of this Cardinal pitching staff in 2012. Least walks in the National League as a unit. They struggled with their command against the Braves, and not just walks, Dan, but command in the strike zone.
Runners at first and second for Michael Bourne. In and out of the glove of Jay. It's a base hit. RBI. Run scores to make it a 7-1 lead.
Nice effort by John Jay. You're just happy that he didn't kind of jam anything. Kind of a vulnerable position as he lays out to try to catch this ball on the run. Went back a little bit, then as he comes in, the ball wasn't hit quite as hard. He's kind of hoping he's able to roll over there and not kind of jam his wrist, which he did not do. He had it for about a quarter of a second.
You ever seen a home run to walk ratio of 18-13? Josh Hamilton. Think about that. 18 home runs already and 13 walks. That's all. That's out to deep left.
Not since Little League. Yeah, or high school.
Exactly. Busch Beer and easy drinking Busch Light. And by Taco Bell, Live Moss. Beautiful day in St. Louis. Christian Martinez is into the ball game. 17 innings of work this year and an ERA of 2.65.
Scoreless inning in game 1 of this series. Cardinals with 1 run on just 8 hits today. Had a couple of opportunities so far, Dan, that they did not capitalize on, but really not a lot to speak of offensively. David Freese dipping below 300. He's at 293. His timing's been off a bit in this series.
1 ball, 1 strike on Freese. Hits it sharply to third, and his counterpart Chipper Jones makes the play. Skip Schumacher will be the pinch hitter. Lined out to left for out number 2.
Cardinal pitchers with 10 strikeouts on the afternoon, and they've given up 7 runs. Very unusual.
A strike to Tony Cruz. Popped up to the right side. Freeman is over and makes the catch. That'll send us to the 9th. Atlanta with the lead of 7-1. And this copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of your St. Louis Cardinals. Numbers on Zebchinski this year. No wins and a loss. 11 innings and an ERA very respectable of 2.45. Schumacher, after lining out to left, stays in the ball game, and he's at second base. Green shifts from second to short. You're caught up. There's your changes. A slider and a strike to Freddie Freeman. You saw the shot viewpoint we're at. Looking down, you can see the shadows closing in. Home plate. That's trouble. And it's a ground rule double. Braves hit 4 of those on Friday night. Ground rule doubles.
I think we learned that Freeman likes the ball down. He had a double last at bat. He took off home plate almost. And he went down to get that delivery as well. Showed some good power the other way. Just one of those days and one of those series.
Ground ball to short, and Green bobbles it for an error. Runners at first and second.
Glad I didn't get out what I was thinking, which was at least the Cardinals defense hasn't faltered in this series. Been a strong point for St. Louis all season long. First in the National League in fielding percentage, and that ball just ate up Tyler.
Strike at the knees to Hayward. Oh, 0-2 pitch to Hayward. Former Pirate and Mariner and Cardinal Jack Wilson. Jason Christensen deal many years ago. Went from Cardinals farm system to the Pittsburgh Pirates for the lefty Christensen.
That's going way back. Left-handed pitcher.
That's right.
Jack Wilson is doing a lot to help out Pasternicki to try to help him become a better shortstop at the big league level, and part of the reason why Jack Wilson's still in this game. As a veteran, realizes that that's part of his value, teaching the younger players. 1998, drafted by St. Louis.
Green will take it himself. It's a double play. Chris Duncan standing by with Pat Paris. Here's the first pitch at the bottom of the ninth to Green, and there's an out.
Wow.
Chipper Jones, thank you very much. One away.
That was a bullet. Caught that ball behind him. Maybe just a little reminder to Chipper as to why he's retiring.
Here's Matt Carpenter with one down. Quickly 0-2. That's a fair ball off the bat of Matt Carpenter. Fan takes it for a ground rule double. We turn now to our Budweiser player of the game.
Nine strikeouts for Tommy Hanson. Not his best outing of the year, but just 5 Cardinal hits. Control was an issue early on. Walked the first 2 batters he faced, but then he turned it around, found his off-speed location, And it was a rough day for the Cardinal bats.
Nice play by Wainwright. Picked that with his hat. Center field. Carpenter tags up from second to third. No, he'll stay put. To the backstop, and Carpenter advances to third on the wild pitch. Tomorrow, Westbrook and Dempster at 5:30. Cubs and Cardinals. Early start to accommodate national television. 5:30 pregame. Beltran with a home run to right. His 13th of the year. 2 balls and no strikes to account for the lone run today by St. Louis. Craig is on deck in a 2-0 pitch. 3-0.
Perhaps a bit of a disappointment for the moms here at the ballpark today, but I'm sure they've enjoyed being here with their kids, and still a nice day to be at the ballpark. You can't win them all. You'd like to, and it's frustrating when the losses pile up. But I would say years from now, those kids are going to remember, and the mom will remember being at the ballpark. And they probably will not remember the score.
Game is extended to Alan Craig. Down to their final strike, and the Braves on the verge of a sweep here in St. Louis. Craig with a long one, deep left field, and it stays fair. It's a home run. A 3-run shot. A long home run for Alan Craig.
Alan Craig pulled his last base hits in the 6th and 7th inning, and he gave this one a ride. That was fun to watch. Long home run off the bat of Alan Craig. And just how far does this ball go? Middle in, misses location. He crushes that ball. First row.
Pitching change, and it's a 7-4 game. Strike one to Berkman from Johnny Venters. This is not what the Braves wanted to do.
Exactly.
Have to go back into their bullpen now with a 3-run lead. And again, the Cardinals down to their final strike.
Appears that we have not seen any issues out of Lance Berkman in his first game back. It's been a long game, and he's managed to play a hard 9 without any issues.
0-2 pitch.
Just trying to find some good news, Dan.
Craig home run kind of
that helps.
Lessens the blow. 2-2. Two-two pitch to Berkman. Tap to the left side and a foul ball.
Didn't notice any issues with Lance running that ball out full speed down the line. I'm sure the trainers and the manager hold their breath every time he takes off.
Craig's home run, by the way, already his 5th this year. Another 2-2 pitch to Berkman. And that's the ball game. The Braves sweep St. Louis in the final visit to St. Louis by Chipper Jones.
All Braves all weekend long. Congratulations to Chipper for an outstanding career, and the Cardinals are just going to have to turn the page and move on.
Stay with us. It's the postgame show. Comes your way next.